The UKIP leader made the comments after the by-election in Oldham. He was claiming that this had led to more postal votes. That aside, we want to know if he's right. Do you think there are still places in Britain where you won't hear English being spoken? Perhaps that describes the street you're living on. Or do you think these comments give people the wrong impression of Asian communities and, in fact, create more division? The number to call me on this morning, 08459 440 445 to have your say. Drop me a text, 81869. Let's go to my first guest this morning, Naz Shah. Naz Shah, very good morning to you.
Morning.
You're Labour MP for Bradford West. What do you make of the comments?
I'm just wondering which planet Nigel Farage is on, really.
Why?
Let's be really clear. This is sour grapes. This what Nigel Farage does classically, which is fearmongers and uses the immigration issue and immigration issues around BME communities and fearmongers amongst wider communities. We had more than 62% turnout on a cold December day. We did what we do good, which is hard-working Labour campaign. We did a really good campaign. I was in Oldham twice. And as for women or people not speaking English, I met two young women from the Bangladeshi community who were part of the youth parliament. And let's be clear, we had a Jim McMahon is one hell of a guy. He was a leader of Oldham City Council. He has a track record of delivery. And this is what we do best, which is that it's a Labour seat. And it's a Labour seat for those very reasons, because we've got hard-working people and because of our policies. This isn't about what Nigel Farage is turning it into.
But his comments were that, people who are turning up with bundles of postal votes and, it is due to make a formal complaint about it. He's, again, this is, if it was the case, it's a matter for a police investigation, claiming that there was something dodgy going on.
There is. Why is it? Why is it we have... If there is something dodgy going on, then the police need to investigate. Absolutely do. But this is about Nigel Farage using scaremongering and using the usual tactics, which is sour grapes, and that's all it is. He can't handle the fact that he's lost. The people of where he was in Tanner saw through what he is and didn't vote for him. And we had, the only member of Parliament wasn't there, the UKIP member of Parliament, wasn't anywhere near Oldham yesterday. This is about his party falling apart at the seams, and he doesn't want the attention to be on that. So what does he do? He goes and makes a statement which will grab the headlines, which is what Nigel Farage is good at.
I'm going to go to Sanjay next. Sanjay, very good morning to you.
Well, morning, Tina.
What do you think? Was Nigel Farage right to say there are some streets where no one speaks English?
He was slightly right and he was slightly wrong. It depends how he means it.
Let's start with slightly right.
Okay. What I mean, slightly right. Slightly right in the sense that there's people coming into the UK nowadays, in the past 10 years, who are they're letting so many people in and they can't barely speak. I've met people who can't barely speak English, and they need people who are English to them, sort of like in between, to interpret what they're saying. So I've seen it myself, and people come up to me, ask me for jobs, and they can't even barely speak English. So I'm shocked how they're getting into this country. They should be able to know English anyway. Now,
so you think people shouldn't even be allowed into this country if they can't speak English?
No, they shouldn't. Not if they want to claim British citizenship. No, they should not be allowed in this country, because they're not. How can they be British if they can't even speak English?
So if you can't speak English, you can't come in.
No, you should not be able to allowed to come in. No, you shouldn't. And another thing I was going to say is, let's just say if I'm on Belgrave Road in Leicester right now, everyone's speaking Gujarati. So if Nigel Farage was to walk through that road and he hears everyone speaking Gujarati, is that a bad thing? I don't really know. I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing. I mean, it doesn't mean that it makes them any more less English just because they're talking another language. I mean, English is not the oldest language anyway. I think English has only been in the UK for about 1,500 years, I think, from my knowledge. But English is not even the oldest language. So who's to say what? The only thing is, this is England. It is an English country, and everyone does speak English, so they have to, and they must learn. I do feel that there's a lot of people who are lazy, who don't want to intentionally. I'm going to say it. I've met a few people, Asians, mostly from Punjabi and Muslims, who want to talk to me, and they know I speak English, they know I speak Gujarati, but they intentionally go speaking Bengali, and they know I don't, but they can speak English, but they don't do it to me. So they smile back at us and say, mate, I don't even understand what you're saying.
Right.
I think that some people go out of their way just to want to speak their own language in this country. That's what I do feel. And then I just laugh back and say, mate, this is England, come on, mate, speak English so I can understand what you're saying.
And where do you live, Sanjay?
Leicester.
Leicester, okay. So, but what about, if you've got, say, grandparents, for example. My grandparents came here because there was a military coup in Africa and they didn't particularly want to, but their house was burnt down, so they had no choice. And so should people like that, my grandparents, be forced to learn English when they come over here and they are, they're senior citizens?
You're right about that, Tina. Same with my grandparents. They understood a few English. They could speak a little English, but they're allowed in this country. They're allowed in this country because British colonies. They're kicked out of Africa. So but you can make an exception because that wasn't. It's not like they had much of a choice and they were elderly back then. And it wasn't like this country had a really bad immigration problem back then. This is something that needs to be taken seriously right now because of it overwhelming of immigration right now.
Okay. Very interesting points. If you agree with Sanjay, let us know too. Don, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hello. Sat Sri Akal. What are your thoughts on this?
Saying something different from all the callers. I sympathise with what Nigel Farage is saying, and I'll tell you why. I'm proud from my Hindu background, mother's side, Sikh background from my dad's side, Punjabi manu bolu aandi hai, which basically means I can speak Punjabi. I'm proud of it. I've learnt it from the Indian films predominantly. I speak it at home. Yeah. As you can tell, Don Singh might not be my real name, but guess what? It's English sounding. I'm a successful businessman. I interact, and I'm proud to be British, proud to be Sikh, and I respect all religions, including Hindu and Islam religion, as long as they're being good Hindus and good Muslims. Now,
so what's the point that you agree with?
Nigel, my point is this. The reason why he's tackling this is this about unity. It's about what connects us from different denominations. Now, in England, what connects us, in the absence of a constitution, where we swear allegiance to a flag, because at the moment the flag is seen as something the BNP would adopt, etc., is language. Now, in the absence of language, you've also got your face. A smile speaks volumes. Yeah. But when you've got veils, when you've got pardas, and when you've got someone who then equally can't speak the language, how is that integration? Now, the other thing is important. Whispering is rude, as you well know. Why? Because you don't understand what they're saying. So when you go out on the streets and you're at bus stops and you hear people and everyone's speaking different languages, you're going to become suspicious, especially in this day and age. But if you was to smile, i.e. have no veil, no parda, or if you was to speak a language that everyone connects with, then guess what? That binds us together. So people should make the effort to speak that language. That doesn't mean that we become defensive straight away and go, oh, what about my language? Yeah. You deny my identity. You're not. You're in England. So guess what? Adopt the English ways and have something to bind us. Now, in the absence of that, because let's be honest, what they're saying is when you come into England, you have to learn the language now. That's become a ruling. Yeah. Okay? Now, I'll tell you what the solution is. The solution is, and this is a whole new debate, is get rid of the monarchy. Instead of swearing a pretend allegiance to the Queen, swear an allegiance to each other as brothers and sisters that live in England from different backgrounds that are connected together. Otherwise, you will not have loyalty to this country.
You're right. That is a totally separate debate. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Let me get to some messages that have been coming in before we go to Dr. Harry Shamera. Nigel Farage's UKIP's PR machine. How many English have made the effort of learning Hindu, Urdu or any other Asian language to try to integrate over the 200 plus years that they were there? That's from Zaf. Lou, I'm white British. I've learnt a little bit of Urdu, Hindi, Sri Lankan through watching Bollywood films and dance. It's broken so many barriers to the point that I'm now chairperson of the Asian Women's Network in Milton Keynes. I think that is MK. Even my kids know a few words. Just those few words can make such a huge difference. Also, learning a few words of another language expands your intelligence. Hi, Tina. I agree with Sanjay. You need to know how to speak English to be here. People coming into this country who don't speak it or make the effort are contributing to the fact that the education standard in English is in decline in some ethnic minority dominant areas. The children's parents can't even be bothered to try to learn. I've asked them and they say, what for? That's from V. Thank you very much.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.